The ambassador's shuttle descended through the shimmering violet skies of Zyphar Prime, its reflective hull gliding effortlessly toward the Galactic Council's central citadel. Ambassador Elias Carter adjusted the cuffs of his diplomatic uniform, his expression a perfect mask of composure. The weight of humanity's future rested upon his shoulders, but outwardly he was unshaken. The council had summoned him under the pretense of a diplomatic hearing, but he knew better. This was a trial, and humanity was the accused. Across from him, his attaché, Lieutenant Mira Vasquez, sat rigidly, her fingers tapping a silent rhythm against her armrest. "They're not calling us here to negotiate, sir. They're looking for an excuse." Her voice was hushed but edged with defiance. Carter gave a slight nod. "That's why we won't give them one." The shuttle landed with a precise hiss of depressurization. As the ramp extended, a delegation of figures awaited them on the polished obsidian landing platform. At the forefront stood High Chancellor Zelther, his elongated form draped in ceremonial robes of midnight blue. His pale, almost translucent skin stretched taut over a skeletal frame, and his obsidian-black eyes held no warmth. The council's enforcer, a symbol of the cold and unyielding bureaucracy that ruled interstellar law, inclined his head in what passed for a gesture of civility. "Ambassador Carter," Zelther intoned, his voice an unsettling blend of authority and condescension, "the council has awaited your presence. I trust you will present a rational defense for your species' continued expansion." Carter smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Rationality has always been humanity's strong suit, Chancellor. I look forward to this discussion." Zelther gestured toward the entrance, and the delegation moved as one into the grand chamber. Towering monolithic pillars lined the vast, circular hall, their intricate carvings telling the stories of civilizations long past. The central platform was a raised dais surrounded by tiered seating filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Some watched in curiosity, others in thinly veiled disdain. A gong sounded, and the chamber fell silent. From the elevated throne at the room's far end, Speaker Zyphos, the presiding authority of the council, leaned forward. His crystalline form refracted light into prismatic colors with every movement, his voice like the chime of ringing glass. "We convene to assess the human expansion into the disputed territories of the Orion Expanse. It is alleged that your species has disregarded interstellar agreements and has established unauthorized colonies within the restricted neutral zones." Carter stepped forward. "With all due respect, Speaker, humanity has acted within the framework of self-preservation. The territories in question were abandoned. Our colonists settled where no claim was actively enforced." Zelther's thin lips curled. "How convenient that you claim ignorance. Humanity's pattern has always been the same. Ambition masquerading as survival. Expansion masked as necessity. Your kind spreads like fire, consuming all in your path." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Carter met Zelther's gaze steadily. "Perhaps because fire is the only thing that keeps the darkness at bay." Zyphos raised a hand, silencing the brewing tension. "This council seeks resolution, not rhetoric. Ambassador Carter, your species is at a crossroads. The council must determine whether humanity remains an equal among us, or whether its unchecked ambition warrants containment." The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Vasquez's jaw tightened, but Carter merely inclined his head. He had expected nothing less. They were not here to debate. This was a thinly veiled ultimatum. But ultimatums, he knew, could be turned against their makers. "Then let us proceed," he said calmly. "If it is proof of humanity's intentions that you seek, I welcome the scrutiny." The council's ensuing deliberations were a gauntlet of verbal combat, a dance of measured words and razor-edged implications. Zelther unleashed a relentless series of accusations, citing border skirmishes, resource disputes, and cultural impositions. Carter countered each with precision, dismantling falsehoods and highlighting the hypocrisy of empires that had once waged wars of their own. Still, the tide of sentiment was not in humanity's favor. The underlying message was clear. The council was searching for a justification to limit humanity's rise. Then came the turning point. A delegate from the Sky Dominion, an avian-like species known for their neutrality, stood abruptly. Enough posturing. There are whispers of forces beyond this chamber seeking to undermine stability. What if this conflict is merely a symptom, not the disease? A silence settled over the chamber. Carter remained impassive, but his mind raced. This was an unexpected development. Someone else was pulling strings. Zelther's expression hardened. Baseless speculation. Is it? Carter interjected smoothly. Perhaps the Council should consider the possibility that humanity is not the threat here, but the scapegoat. The murmurs swelled again. The game had changed. Carter had planted doubt, shifting the conversation away from condemnation toward investigation. Zelther knew it too. The Chancellor's gaze darkened, but he said nothing. The session was adjourned, but Carter could sense the shifting currents. As he and Vasquez exited the chamber, she exhaled sharply. You just threw a wrench into their narrative. Exactly, Carter murmured. And now, we find out who tries to remove it. The corridors of the diplomatic quarters on Zyphar Prime were vast and eerily silent, save for the quiet hum of energy fields that lined the walls. Ambassador Elias Carter walked with measured steps, his mind racing behind his calm exterior. Lieutenant Mira Vasquez matched his pace, her gaze flickering to the shadows where hidden surveillance systems no doubt observed their every move. They'll come at us soon, she murmured. We disrupted their momentum in the chamber. Zelther won't let that stand. Carter nodded, his expression unreadable. That's exactly what we want. He reached the secured meeting room assigned to humanity's delegation. With a subtle motion, Vasquez activated a counter-surveillance device, ensuring their conversation remained private. The moment the device hummed to life, the door slid open, revealing a tall, broad-shouldered figure waiting inside. Kryn of Velder, a seasoned diplomat from one of the few neutral factions, stood with arms crossed, his golden eyes assessing Carter with quiet amusement. I see you enjoy walking into traps, Kryn said, his deep voice laced with sarcasm. Impressive, if not suicidal. Carter allowed himself a thin smile. I prefer to set traps of my own. Kryn exhaled through his nose, stepping forward. Zelther has the Council's ear, but not all members are blind to his ambition. There are those who suspect this hearing is more than what it appears to be. Vasquez frowned. You mean the Sky delegate was right? There's something bigger at play? Kryn gave a slow nod. The war of politics is rarely fought for the reasons given. This is not just about humanity. It's about power, who holds it, who loses it. And Zelther is playing his hand as if he knows the final outcome. Carter leaned against the table, arms folded. Then we need to change the game. If someone is manipulating the Council from the shadows, we expose them. If this is about power, we disrupt the balance. Kryn studied him for a long moment. You're bold, human. But tell me, how do you plan to outmaneuver an enemy when you don't even know who they are? A sharp chime interrupted them. A message flashed on Carter's wrist display, an encrypted missive from an unknown sender. He decrypted it swiftly. Meet me in the lower district at the hour of red moonrise. Come alone. The truth is not in the council chambers. Vasquez read over his shoulder and immediately shook her head. This is a trap. Most likely, Carter admitted. But it's also an opportunity. The lower districts of Zyphar Prime were a stark contrast to the gleaming halls of the council. Here, the true nature of the capital world revealed itself. Hidden deals, whispered conspiracies, and those who thrived in the shadows. Carter moved through the neon-lit streets, his diplomatic insignia concealed beneath a plain cloak. He could feel eyes on him, unseen figures lurking in the periphery. At the designated meeting point, a hooded figure stepped from the gloom. Their features were obscured by the low light, but their voice was urgent. You play a dangerous game, Ambassador. Carter remained still. I prefer to think of it as calculated risk. A pause. Then the hooded figure exhaled. Zelther is not acting alone. There are forces within the council who seek to fracture its stability, and they are using humanity as the catalyst. If they can push your people into conflict, they will have the justification they need to enact sweeping changes. The council, as you know, it will cease to exist. Carter's mind worked quickly. Who stands to benefit? The figure hesitated. I do not know all their names, but I do know this: Zelther is not the architect. He is merely the blade, wielded by hands that remain unseen. The conversation was cut short as a sudden burst of energy illuminated the alleyway. A precision shot slammed into the wall inches from Carter's head. The hooded figure darted into the shadows. Carter spun, instincts taking over, and moved swiftly, ducking behind cover as more shots rang out. His pursuers were not mere thugs. Their coordinated movement, the precision of their fire, it was the work of trained operatives. Someone had been watching. Someone had decided he was getting too close. Carter maneuvered through the winding alleys, his mind racing even as he evaded pursuit. If there was an unseen force manipulating the council, then everything humanity faced was part of a much larger ploy. And if Zelther was merely a pawn, then the real power remained hidden. He reached a secured extraction point where Vasquez was already waiting. She pulled him into the vehicle, her expression tight with concern. That was too close. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. It means we're on the right path. Vasquez gave him a look. And what's our next move? Carter leaned back, his mind already forming a plan. We don't play by their rules anymore. We make them react. If they want a gambit, we give them one. The council chamber was abuzz with quiet tension, the kind that lurked beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt. Ambassador Elias Carter strode through the grand hall, his pace measured, his expression unreadable. Lieutenant Mira Vasquez walked a half-step behind him, her sharp eyes scanning the assembled delegates. The weight of the previous night's revelations still pressed against them. Zelther was merely a tool, a blade wielded by an unseen force. Now they had to force those hands into the light. High Chancellor Zelther stood at the central podium, his elongated frame rigid with authority. His dark gaze locked onto Carter as he approached. Ambassador, Zelther intoned. This hearing was called for deliberation, yet you have been absent, engaging in unsanctioned activities within the lower districts. Do you wish to explain your disregard for protocol? Carter inclined his head. My time was spent gathering the truth. A truth that, until now, this council has been blind to. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Zelther's expression remained impassive, but his fingers curled ever so slightly. A tell Carter did not miss. Explain yourself, the crystalline speaker Xiphos demanded, his iridescent form reflecting the glow of the chamber's overhead lights. Carter stepped forward, his voice unwavering. Humanity is not the true target here. We are merely a pretext, a convenient scapegoat for forces that seek to fracture this council and reshape the balance of power. His gaze swept across the delegates. Ask yourselves, who benefits from this? Who gains when trust is eroded, when war looms over us? Zelther's voice was sharp. You make accusations without evidence. This is nothing more than human deception. Carter held his ground. Then allow me to present evidence. He turned his wrist slightly, activating a concealed hollow emitter. The chamber darkened as a projection flickered to life. A recording from the lower districts, where the hooded informant had warned him of the true conspiracy. Zelther is not acting alone. The figure's voice echoed through the chamber. There are forces within the council who seek to fracture its stability. If they can push humanity into conflict, they will have the justification they need to enact sweeping changes. The council, as you know, it will cease to exist. Gasps filled the room. Some delegates leaned forward, their gazes darting between one another. A few exchanged hushed whispers. Others, Carter noted, remained disturbingly still. Zelther's expression darkened. This is meaningless. A fabricated deception. Carter's voice was calm, but edged with steel. Then perhaps the council should explain why operatives loyal to an unknown faction attempted to assassinate me last night. Why there are encrypted transmissions originating from within this very chamber, signaling unknown forces outside council space. He turned his attention to Xiphos, If humanity was truly the aggressor, why are we the ones being hunted? The speaker was silent for a long moment, his crystalline form shifting, refracting the chamber's light in uneasy patterns. The weight of doubt now pressed upon the room, and Carter knew he had shifted the balance. Then a sudden change. A delegate from the Varkathi Dominion, a reptilian species known for their strategic cunning, rose. His yellow eyes gleamed with understanding. "The human is correct," he said slowly. "If the council is being manipulated, then this matter goes beyond the charges against their species. We must uncover the true hand guiding these events." Carter allowed himself a slow breath. He had not won, not yet, but the tide was turning. The council could no longer ignore the fractures within their own ranks. Zelther's gaze burned into him, but for the first time, the High Chancellor did not respond. Vasquez leaned in slightly, her voice just a whisper. "We just forced their next move." Carter gave a small nod. "Now we see who makes it." The silence in the council chamber was thick, a fragile pause before the inevitable storm. Ambassador Elias Carter remained motionless at the center of the vast hall, his pulse steady despite the palpable shift in tension. The revelation of unseen manipulators had rattled the delegates, their once confident posturing now tinged with uncertainty. High Chancellor Zelther had yet to respond, his dark gaze unreadable. Carter knew what was coming next. Zelther's voice, when it finally came, was measured, but beneath its practiced calm lay a sharpened edge. "You speak of hidden forces and deception, yet offer no proof beyond whispers in the dark. This council is not swayed by paranoia." Carter met his gaze evenly. Paranoia implies fear without cause. This chancellor is calculated resistance. Zelther's lips curled slightly. And resistance, unchecked, leads to chaos. Before Carter could reply, Speaker Xiphos raised a crystalline hand. "Enough. The council must deliberate on these claims." His prismatic form refracted shifting hues of tension. "Ambassador Carter, you have planted doubt, but doubt alone is not truth. Until such time as verifiable evidence is presented, the accusations you have made cannot supersede the charges levied against your people." A murmur swept through the chamber. Some delegates nodded in agreement, others exchanged wary glances. Carter knew this was the best outcome he could have expected at this moment. He had stopped the momentum against humanity, but he had not yet undone the damage. Zelther inclined his head slightly. A reasonable decision. However, the matter of human expansion into restricted territories remains unresolved. His gaze flickered toward Carter, cold amusement lurking beneath his words. "Perhaps we should return to that discussion, as was originally intended." Carter exhaled slowly. The game was shifting again, and Zelther was attempting to regain control. The Chancellor had been wounded, but he was not yet defeated. The session was temporarily adjourned, giving Carter and Vasquez a brief moment away from the scrutiny of the chamber. As they stepped into the secured diplomatic lounge, Vasquez let out a quiet breath. "We bought ourselves time, but not much. Zelther's already looking for a way to regain the upper hand." Carter nodded, running a hand through his hair. "He's playing carefully. He knows something we don't." A voice cut through the quiet. "Then perhaps it's time you learned what he's hiding." Both turned swiftly to see Kryn of Velder standing at the entrance, his golden eyes assessing them. The neutral diplomat's usual air of amused detachment was absent, replaced by something far graver. Carter gestured for him to continue. "What do you know?" Kryn hesitated, then stepped closer. "I have been gathering my own intelligence. There are encrypted transmissions leaving Xiphar Prime, coded in a way that suggests high-level clearance. Someone within the council is feeding information to an unknown party outside known space." Vasquez's expression hardened. "Which means this isn't just political maneuvering. It's coordinated." Carter's mind worked swiftly, piecing together the implications. "And if they're operating beyond council oversight, it means they have allies with the power to move unseen." Then the transmission cut off. Vasquez swore under her breath. "That was a warning." Carter's jaw tightened. "No, that was a declaration." Kryn exhaled. Then I suggest we act before they do. The path forward had become clear. The hidden enemy was no longer content with secrecy. The real battle was about to begin.